Gentlemen and ladies, brothers and sisters, people, whoever you are and wherever you are, welcome to the Truth Prescription Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Seku Gathers, and each week I interview successful people from around the world and discuss how accepting the truth can propel your career and help you live a life of gusto and purpose. No mantras, no gimmicks, just the truth. So close your eyes and open your ears, and let's get into this. Come on. Yes, we are back once again. Truth Prescription. Today I have the pleasure of talking to a special guest, Pony Gale. How you doing, Pony?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Pony is the writer, director, producer of Outrageous, which is an Amazon docuseries that tells real stories of people in the LGBTQ community. She kind of got her start interviewing local rock bands in LA. Eventually decided she wanted to work for HBO and got an opportunity to work on the production side of The Sopranos and Sex and the City. And now she's working on a supernatural thriller called Pendulum, in addition to the Outrageous show, and another documentary where she's going to focus on a retired UCLA professor who's a Holocaust survivor, which is amazing because I'm sure there's not a lot of them around. Pony Gale.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm actually playing music for you. You can't hear, but Genuine Pony is playing.
I love it. Oh my God, that's like my theme song.
That's right. So, welcome to the show. How's it going out there? And are you in California? You're in LA right now?
I'm in California. I'm in Santa Monica, California.
Santa Monica. Oh,
yeah, and I'm actually from New York. I was born in Manhattan.
Beautiful.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love New Yorkers.
Yeah. So you're a transplant. How do you like it? I mean, you've been out there for some time now. How do you like it out there versus New York?
Well, I love it. I just got spoiled by the weather here, but I also love New York. It's, growing up, I used to say I was bi-coastal because most of my family's in like upstate New York, Connecticut.
Okay.
And so it's really the best of both worlds. But now I'm just, I love visiting New York and living in LA.
Okay.
For now.
So, we don't know what's going to happen in the future.
We don't know.
Tomorrow's not promised. As they say, tomorrow's not promised.
One day at a time.
Yeah, one day at a time, 1 second at a time.
Right? Exactly.
So,
and they left one project out, but I'll fill you in on that later.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get into it. Absolutely. But Pony has had an interesting, very colorful life, and as do all my guests. So I'm really happy and excited to hear about it and talk to her today. We're going to jump right in to the Truth Prescription. As my listeners know, but for anyone that hasn't heard the show before, the Truth Prescription really focuses on the truth and the fact that most successful people, no matter their industry, have had to deal with certain truths. And usually it was accepting those truths that allowed them to actually break through and become successful. So Pony, talk to my listeners, bring us into your world. We usually do a personal and a professional, but you can pick either one or combine them and talk about just maybe let's do professional first. Maybe something in your professional life, a truth that you realized that you sort of had to wrestle with in order to break through.
Okay, that's a good one. I've had so many, to be honest. I can't think of just one, but chronologically, there's quite a few that stand out. But I can go back chronologically to one of the first ones. Was I realized early on that the creative industry was for me. Both my parents, my dad was a music producer and lyricist. That's how I got the name Pony. It was one of my stage names, and my real name, Pony Marie Gale.
Wow.
And Pony Sherrill, who I was named after, was in a group called the Sherrill Sisters, and she later went on to produce a lot of old Tony Curtis movies. My dad was a lot older than my mom.
How much older?
About 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. They got married. They met in New York City, actually. My mom was singing at a nightclub.
Right.
She's a creative, too. And
they met in an elevator, right?
They met in an elevator.
That's amazing.
And he asked her out, and 3 weeks later they eloped. You already know that. Wow.
That must have been a great elevator pitch.
Yeah. So, I mean, that in itself was kind of crazy, but I mean, they had a happy marriage.
Yeah.
Up until, my dad had a heart attack and suddenly passed away. But,
it's tough.
so I guess you just never know. I just think sometimes when
Did you think before that, that you may have gone into something non-creative?
Here's what happened. Growing up, my mom later had a show on what's used to be Fox News out here, Channel 11, a public affairs show she hosted and produced. And as a teenager, I always thought I would get into the music end.
Got it.
I played guitar and I sang, I wrote music. But also growing up, starting at 12, I grew up making movies with my friends in the neighborhood. One of my friends had a Super 8 camera.
Wow.
And I was the Bionic Woman. Another friend was the Bionic Man. And we would spend our days, like my mom was always worried I was getting into trouble. We'd spend our day, doing slow-mo, figuring out how to make locks look like they broke and making these Super 8 movies.
Wow, awesome.
So that I really started early on. And to be honest, I've played guitar since I was 4, but I'm still not that good. And I really can't keep a tune. So it just by default, went into a filmmaker, and that evolved. But really as a teenager, I thought, wow, how, my mom had polio, got when she was 7. She got polio before they, had the vaccine.
Yeah.
And she was paralyzed from the neck down, and then slowly movement came back, but her legs never fully came back. So she grew up walking on crutches. And when she had me, she went to a wheelchair because it was just easier to get around.
Sure.
And honestly, like as a teenager, I thought she had been so successful, even with a, physical disability, I thought, how can I ever live up to that? Or my dad. So I kind of thought I'd go into something else. And I didn't want to get into the industry because my parents had.
Got it. Yeah.
And what happened for me, I guess my moment of truth was I realized that it was in my blood. And even though I tried not to do it, I couldn't not.
Following that passion,
Yeah. And that really happened after I got sober. I got sober when I was in my 20s. And in sobriety is when I learned I had to live my truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I discovered my real truth was my creativity. And that was my passion. Yeah. And I couldn't live an authentic life without it. And that's when I kind of went on my journey. And really, my mom tricked me into doing an internship at Century Cable, which is now Spectrum. It's changed a million times.
Sure.
It was Century Cable, Adelphia,
Time Warner,
now Spectrum. And they used to have live shows on Saturdays where they would just, film different people playing, had different shows live. So I did an internship there working on the live shows. And they taught me camera work, editing. And in turn, I had to, give them at least 6 months to a year, of my services free.
Right.
And it's so fun. And that's when I started my music show, like a year later, Reality View, where I would go out and shoot a lot of local LA bands and then interview people. And that was back when you had tons of equipment and we'd have to go in a van and carry all the stuff and then have people live and do acoustic sets. And I love that. And I just grew from that. I realized, I thought I wanted to produce. And when I went to UCLA and my major was communications, I thought I wanted to do PR. It wasn't creative enough. I went back and I took directing, producing, and I took screenwriting 1, 2, and 3.
So cool.
And I started doing my own thing and then freelancing because I talked to people in the industry. How did you get in? So I freelanced on a lot of shows. I worked for George Slaughter Productions. They used to do, and that was kind of cool because I remember as a kid watching Laugh-In. And George Slaughter, I got to meet the guy that did Laugh-In, produced and worked for his company. And he was actually an amazing guy. And that company ran so smooth, low hours. And then I worked for Moffat Lee Productions, which were grueling hours, 8 in the morning till 2 in the morning, doing like the live comic relief shows with like Whoopi Goldberg and Robin Williams and, people like that. And they were actually amazing. It was amazing to be part of it, but it was really like I paid my dues. It was really grueling hours.
Grind. Yeah, you in a grind.
And then I just one day decided I wanted to work for HBO, and everybody was like, that's never going to happen. Like, do you know how many people want to work there? People sweep the floors, to get in.
Right.
And just by chance, a friend of mine worked there that I met a couple months later, who's still a good friend to this day.
Yeah.
And said, hey, and I told her I wanted to work there. She said, hey, they're doing a PSA, and do you want to work for free, but you'll get to meet all the big wigs at HBO. Right. And I said, sure. So I did it, and I met all the
big wigs. Yeah.
All the big wigs. And a few months later, I was doing just like they had me work a little bit on a show there and here and there. And then I got a gig as an assistant at New World Entertainment. And that they started Access Hollywood and shows like that. And that place was my first start. I'm like, what's an assistant? But somehow I got the job. And it was, it was just more in-house. And they made me sign a 2-year contract, which I was leery of because I'm kind of a commitment phobe, but I did. Sure. And ironically, we were supposed to merge with King World, which at the time was Oprah Winfrey's company. And Rupert Murdoch's company came in and did a hostile takeover. Wow. Because they wanted our 10 TV stations. So I came into work the next day and we're like, okay, we're all going to be laid off. And
wow.
So I was home kind of like depressed. I just moved into a new place and I was home just kind of like depressed and sad. And my phone rang. This was back before cell phones, and I picked up. And it was my friend that worked at HBO. And she goes, what are you doing home? I was going to leave a message and invite you to my birthday party. And so I told her what happened. And she said, hey, there's an opening at HBO. This producer is looking for, an assistant and somebody to like be a liaison between the productions and HBO.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, she goes, well, fax me your resume and I'll give it to him. So I did.
Fax me your resume.
Fax me your resume. It was the fax machine days, and the guy called me, had me come in for an interview, and he was like, my wife Robin worked with you on a show, and she loves you. She said to say hi. And I'm really bad with names, which is not good to this day. And I couldn't remember who she was, but I'm good at faces. And then I saw a picture of her, and I was like, oh, tell Robin I said hi.
Yeah.
I just kind of went with it. And she said, you're great. And he hired me on the spot.
Amazing.
And that was my start at HBO. And he taught me a lot. Dan Caplow was his name. And he just said, start as far as I've always been an independent filmmaker. And his advice to me was just go out and shoot stuff. Just start making stuff. Yeah. And that's what I did. So, my stint at HBO lasted on and off for 16 years. And I would go off and do my own projects, and then they'd call me back to work on a project. And it was a wonderful place to start, because it was like at the start of all their original programming. They were, at the time, it was like their motto was think out of the box, which I love.
Yeah.
And it was just a really great time. I loved Chris Albrecht, who was the CEO, creative. After Chris left, things kind of changed. And
Did you ever get to meet David Simon, the Wire?
You know what?
Writer and producer.
I didn't meet David Simon. Well, actually, to be honest, if I did, I don't remember.
Okay.
But like I said, I'm bad at names. But that was also shot.
It's shot in Baltimore.
Yes. So like that's the umbrella. We'd have these little umbrella production companies that would do it, and then we had all the suits at HBO, and then I'd kind of be in between. The Wire wasn't actually one of the shows I worked on.
Okay.
But I do remember The Wire and seeing it. I remember at the time I loved it because it was really cutting edge. All their stuff was, and that was another one that was really cutting edge. But
sure. So is The Sopranos.
So it was The Sopranos, and to be honest, I'm going to give you some insider information. I remember reading the script of The Sopranos, and the inside at the time was nobody thought it was going to be a hit. People thought, what? Like a monster that likes ducks. And
Right.
David Chase, the last thing he did was a Rockford Files reunion. Everybody thought it was going to, fall flat. And it ended up being a huge hit. And that taught me you just never know. And there was another show, and I won't name it, by a very successful writer that was really hot at the time, and everybody was like, oh, this script is hilarious, this is going to be a hit. Do you know we shot the pilot? It was so bad it never saw the light of day. It was just trashed. Wow. So that, between that and The Sopranos, and it was the same timing, that's when I learned, I'm like, you just don't know. You don't know. Right. And it's also about like kind of going with your passion. And 6 Feet Under I worked on was a great show. Sex and the City, the first pilot we shot, it had to be reshot with a different director, and we got a different showrunner. And and then it was like, just like.
Now, why can you tell me? I mean, I know we're going off a little bit, but can you? Well, first of all, let me just say. So your truth prescription around that was follow your passion, don't ignore your passion, follow it and stick to it.
Yes.
Now I'm going to break protocol a little bit. Tell me about this change in the director. Like, why did the director need to be changed? Why did it need to be reshot? This is all interesting to me as a filmmaker also.
Because it was really bad. And they thought, we were like, the story's there, the acting's there, it's there, but it just, sometimes, you know what it is? Sometimes it's just not a good fit.
Got it.
It's, and that's how I feel about it. Just like relationships, sometimes you're with somebody and you just wish it could work, but it doesn't, because it's just not a good fit. And then they're with somebody else and you're with somebody else, and it's great over there and you're great here, and you're like, oh, thank God, it's just not a good fit. It was like, I think that's what I'm going to say about that, because it wasn't that, I think it just wasn't a good fit. And it's also interesting about the other show that didn't work because of the style the director tried to do didn't work for a series. I'll say this director does great with features, but it didn't translate well to series.
Got it.
Kind of thing,
okay. Okay.
And sometimes, I've found in my own journey of the truth prescription, sometimes that's why I love to collaborate, because sometimes what looks good on paper or sounds good on paper doesn't, you'll start breaking it down and it's like, that doesn't work.
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And that's why I'm open to feedback, as I go, because sometimes I'll hear things from somebody else that works a lot better than what I thought. And, it's like, and I also learned, like, you don't want to hang on to necessarily always the story, the shot, the scene. Like, oh, I love that scene. Yeah, but it just doesn't work, Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how do you deal with, let's say, and again, I'm going off protocol, but it's okay. If you have a friend who sends you a script and wants you to look at it and you think it needs a lot of work, like, how do you deal with that? Do you tell them? Do you not say anything? How do you deal with it? Or if you're not even a friend, let's say you're working with a collaborator and you guys are thinking about doing something and you start reading what they've started doing and you think it needs a lot of work. How do you handle that?
Well, that's a really good question, because that comes up for me a lot. And it just recently did. It comes up all the time. And I've learned to, there's a thing that I've learned that, I do a lot of inner work and spiritual practices myself. And one of the things I learned, if you're going to say it kind. So, because I know along the way too, I've had to learn how to deal with constructive criticism. And my very first professor, a screenwriting instructor, who I love, taught, say what you like first, and then give the constructive criticism last, because there's usually a little of both. And so I try to be honest, but with kindness. And, I recently had somebody come to me with a project that I didn't know that was referred through a friend. And I just said, I listened and, I got on board, and I was just honest, said, I'm really busy and I just don't have the time. But I think your project's great, because I'm not going to kill the dream and the idea.
Sure.
I did think, and the project's very in the developmental stage, But the truth was, it wasn't something that I only work on things now that capture my heart, my passion.
Yeah.
And I feel grateful and fortunate to do that. That's always been my dream, and I'm able to do that now. Yeah. And it was something that I thought was an amazing idea, but I didn't have the passion for it. So I'm like, best of luck. And if I hear of somebody else, I'll let you know. And I had another friend who just happened to call me, this project I've been passionate about, a childhood friend, and she wasn't ready to do it. And I got a phone call out of the blue, and I had thought about her a couple of weeks ago, like, she needs to get this made. And she called me yesterday and said, hey, do you have time for any more projects? I said, I'm really busy, but what is it? She goes, and it's the project. She goes, I'm ready to do it. It's about her dad.
Wow.
And who's an iconic figure.
Okay.
And his story really needs to be told. And I said, that's something close to my heart. Of course.
I want to do it.
And that's the whole process. But so I found, to just really be honest, like in a nice way, and don't kill somebody's dream, because you never know. Like, I know for myself, I'm grateful and fortunate. I had a lot of people that helped me along the way, and that some that didn't. And I had, one of the first projects I wanted to direct, because I was like, I want to be a producer. And then it was like, it's not creative enough. Okay, I want to direct. First project I wanted to direct, and a friend was producing. It was a short film, and we read, this pitch from these two writers. We loved it. They gave us a script. It was a short. It was 60 pages long. We're like,
that's not a short.
We're like, whoa, this is like an hour.
That's not a short. That's an hour. Yeah.
So we cut
it an hour
and said, you need to be short. And they wanted this music and that music. And I worked affairs at HBO, and I said, whoa, we need music licensing. Get some like unknown artists that want to, get their music heard. And so they told the producer, we don't want her. We want a different director. And so at first my feelings were hurt, and then I was like, fine. And that is what fueled me to go, well, I'm going to go take screenwriting 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to go back to school at UCLA and take screenwriting, because I want to tell these stories myself. Like, who needs the writers?
Yeah.
And, taking screenwriting, I'd always been a writer and always creative, but I didn't know the format. It opened up the floodgates on how to tell that story. And so that really
the inciting event. Yeah.
So sometimes, like, I guess where I'm going with that, the truth is the truth factor. Like, the truth for me, sometimes in my disappointments I've learned to love the journey and the process. Those got me to where I needed to go. Yeah. So sometimes that project I wanted to do, that job I wanted that I didn't get, helped me go in the right direction to get what I really wanted.
Sure.
That maybe I didn't even see. Sometimes I can't see it. I can't see the big picture.
Yeah. Something you said made me think about this quote from this author, Dario Salas. Criticism without love is an aggression. I really love that. Because it's
like that too.
Yeah, yes. It's so true. But you're right. I like that. Lead with what you like first, but the most important thing, don't kill the dream. You don't want to be a dream killer.
Right.
My wife says her mom is sometimes a dream killer.
Oh, I understand.
Right. You understand?
No, my mom's always been very supportive, but like sometimes her delivery is
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very, very cut and dry, very blunt. They're realists, quote unquote.
Yes.
And, when you work in a creative space, by nature of being creative, you're not dealing in reality because you're creating reality. So it's interesting. Okay. So your personal truth prescription, I think you already sort of gave us a great segue, your 24 years sober journey, which is amazing.
I got sober. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, you can't see her, listeners, but she looks young. That California weather is doing something great to her out there.
I love
you. So, talk a little bit. You can talk about anything in your personal life, but I always think addiction is an interesting topic because it's so pervasive in our society and it's such a tough thing to overcome. So if you could talk a little bit about it and maybe, give some tips on how you confronted it and dealt with it and eventually broke through with it.
Sure. Well, I got 3 DUIs when I was younger. The first DUI I got was when I was 19 because I had a fake ID. And when I was 17, I bought a fake ID out of the back of a Mademoiselle magazine. I sent away for it, and it worked half the time. Things were a lot different back then. But yeah, I was right. My first DUI was 19, and I just said, I'm never driving home on Santa Monica Boulevard again. Yeah. It was about where I was. I don't think it had fully hit me, and I do think.
Why were you drinking to excess?
Well,
what was happening to you?
I was actually having fun when I was 19. I mean, at an early age, 17, and one of my friends, I grew up in LA, so I grew up with a lot of interesting people. And one of my friends whose father, that I won't get into details, had started this amazing company, used to just give us a wad of hundreds and say, go have fun, girls. Little did he know we were going out to the Sunset Strip and buying $100 bottles of champagne and, partying it up, getting in wherever with our, fake IDs and having a good time. And so it was really, to be honest, it was really fun. I was always a good kid. I was like a bookworm. I was also into sports. I played basketball on the girls' basketball team at Samo High. Yay. We actually, we were in first place. We did really well. I blew out my knee playing basketball. And that's really, I think, where my addiction started, because I was really depressed when my knee got blown out. And I was taking Tylenol with codeine I had knee surgery. But I found if I drank a beer or two, I really liked the way it made me feel. So that's when I think the partying kind of came in, because I felt like I'd played basketball since I was Pee-wee basketball since I was a kid. And my dream was to play in the Olympics.
Wow.
Which I'm 5'6", it would have never happened. But,
not necessarily. I mean, Dawn Staley wasn't that tall.
I really loved it. It was my passion. Yeah. That was before anything else. Basketball was my passion.
Wow.
And, so that was really hard for me, because it kind of I felt like it killed, my dream died, and that's, I think, when the partying started.
Yeah.
And then I found going to clubs, it was a different reality. And I actually had a lot of fun, and it was fun until it wasn't. And then somewhere, and there was a lot of cocaine going around at that time. And I actually thought that was my problem, and I stopped doing cocaine cold turkey. And then the drinking kicked in, and probably in my 20s, I used to like to drink and go race on Mulholland. I liked fast cars, and I also was discovering my sexuality. I was you say it's a person, I used to say I liked fast cars and fast women. It was just or the person. I just was having fun. I was living, and just I was at that age. I thought I was invincible.
Yeah. Invincible. Everything. Yeah.
Know everything, and so I thought I could just get away with it all. And after my third DUI, I didn't have an attorney. I had the first two, I had attorneys. I got out of it. It was more of a hand slap. I had to go to a couple meetings, go through a drug and alcohol program, but it was all doable. And the third one, I had a public defender, and I was looking at a lot more serious, jail time, and I kind of ran. I ran from that. I was a fugitive. And I kept partying. And I was just at that point, it stopped working, obviously. And one day, a friend of mine I used to party with was sober, called me. And she was happy, and I was miserable. And it was I had that moment of clarity when I realized, I'm going to ruin my life. And I felt I already had, to be honest.
Yeah.
If I don't stop doing this, and I just thought I have no way to go but up. I can't, I felt like I just, gone to the bottom. And she's like, hey, I said, you know what?
What I was going to ask you? What was your mom saying this whole time when you were going through this
My
process of partying and finding your sexuality and drinking and living the fast life, fast cars?
my poor mom was like freaking out. She did an intervention. My family did an intervention, and the whole thing where the family's there, they keep you, they tell you all the stuff, and then
like A&E,
like Raiders Institute. Yeah, they called. Do you want help? But I was over 18 then. I was like 22, and I said no, I don't want help. No, I refused it. So they couldn't do anything. My mom sent me to therapists and all kinds of stuff, which they said at the time with the sexuality thing, are you homophobic? Because I would be like, it's the person, I used to, and I really believed I liked both men and women until I got sober and I realized I'm gay.
Oh my goodness. I got sober and realized I'm gay.
I was actually out dating this guy I really was into, and we were kissing one night and this thought popped in my head and I was like, man, I bet if he had a sister, she'd be hot. And that's when I just knew. I'm like, okay, I didn't tell him that. The next day I just said, I think we need to be friends. And he was such a cool guy. We stayed friends. And that was my moment of truth that I really got, okay, I have a preference, and it's, and it wasn't fair to anybody else or myself. But I got it when I got it. Same with my sobriety. And so, my mom sent me to a therapist who said, do you have a problem with that? Was like trying to see if I was homophobic. If I see you have a problem, does that bother you? And I said, no. And so he told my mom, well, she's fine. If it was a problem, she'd be homophobic, but she's not. So she didn't like that answer and sent me to somebody else who said the same thing. So,
it's funny.
What was funny? My mom came to terms with it. At one point, she's like, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know. And then when I lived with my first girlfriend before I got sober, my mom called me one day and said, honey, can we have lunch? And I said, yeah, and we did. And she said, I want to know about your life. I want to know what's happening. She's like, I read a couple books. And she goes, I thought I did something wrong. She goes, and I realized I didn't do anything wrong. You're who you are, and I want you to be happy and love who you love. Yeah. And, it was beautiful. But it took a couple years for her to get to that point, and I let her have her space and figure it out on her own, Okay, yeah. And now she would think it was weird. I mean, she's tried to set me up before and everything else. Like, she's she actually is always very open to my partners. And, if anything, she told me a long time ago, like, nobody meets my mom now unless I'm serious, because she told me once, she's like, honey, I get attached to these girls too. Yeah. Because we kind of went through, I'll tell you, well, I'll just be honest, I'm not a rock star when it comes to relationships. Rock star. I really had to learn how to, it's another thing, how to just, it's life lessons. And I think, sometimes things work until they don't. And also you learn what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and it's also great fodder for writing, for scripts.
Yes.
The more you experience, the more you can put it to paper and have a real, actual real, when you're doing dialogue and you're writing dialogue, like have it be a real dialogue because it's from your own experience. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, my one script that we're actually working on now, that's finished, but we have some people attached. We have a girl from Fear of the Walking Dead attached, and
cool.
My manager's working on financing for us, called The Contest. And the main character that gets killed is a narcissist, and that's totally based on an ex-girlfriend. So it is not that I would ever kill anybody, because but you know what I mean? It's the narcissist part was like great for the story,
Yeah, absolutely.
which I never really knew a lot about narcissists until I dated one. Like, know what I mean? I knew, but you don't really know. So it's it's great writing, and it's a great, kind of life experience. And I've given up trying to figure that part of life out, the whole relationship. All I can do is try to be the best person I can be. And instead of, I can't change anyone. And instead of focusing on what somebody else is doing, like, what am I doing? Because I found like a lot of the things I was complaining about were things that I wasn't doing. Like you can't, you can't have one foot in and one foot out and expect somebody else to have both feet in, or you can't
Sure.
expect to like phone it in and have a real relationship. But I had an amazing relationship with the girl that was so zen. She was like close to Buddha. And it was an amazing
Buddha-esque.
And she unexpectedly died. And that kind of sent me into a,
another depression.
Another
whirlwind.
Whirlwind where you're just like,
sure.
You just don't hurt like that again, because when you love somebody that deeply, it just rips your heart out.
Yeah. To your point, I mean, you really have to be able to focus in on. You said it earlier. It's about the process. I mean, as difficult as that sounds, and as difficult as it is to hear, you had a wonderful experience. That you can now synthesize or quintessentialize into whatever you're doing.
Right.
But it's hard. It's just hard because a part of us is selfish. Like, I still want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for a while I went to the complete opposite because I didn't want to get hurt. And then I found out, I'm not a sociopath. So then I'm getting emotionally attached anyway to things that aren't a good fit. And so now I'm back to, we'll see what happens, to be continued. But I'm working on opening my heart again, and I'm dating somebody now I really like, one step at a time, that I'm being more vulnerable with.
Okay.
And
it's all about vulnerability.
Really, just enjoying the process for today.
Yeah. Good. Day by day. No projections.
Which is like writing, which is like the process for Outrageous. I was telling you earlier, Outrageous started out as a reality series. We're going to follow 5 girls, different sexual orientations. And that evolved into something else because it was kind of like herding cats, and it just wasn't working.
Yeah.
And then, as I told you, I was watching Vice, an HBO show that's a docuseries, and I saw this episode on a Middle Eastern company that I was telling you, I think it was Iran, but I'm not positive, where it's illegal to be gay. They will kill you if you're gay.
Wow.
But if you're transgender, they'll pay for your surgery. So I was like, wow.
It's ridiculous.
And they actually had people on. They had a female that transitioned to a male. They paid for the surgery, and they interviewed her in the shop with her brother.
Okay.
And her brother said, I lost a sister, but I gained a brother. And he said, if my sister would have been gay, I would have either had to kill her or had her killed. But now I have a brother. And I thought, I also thought, how many people were actually gay that got caught and maybe said, yes, I'm transgender.
Right. Sure.
To not get killed.
Right.
But through that is when I got the idea to do a docuseries for the LGBTQ community. I'm like, there's so many stories and so many shades of the community. I want to tell as many stories as I can and have different episodes with different guest stars and different stories. And that's when it evolved into what it is today. And that was through the journey.
Sure. Right.
And through that, there were a couple production companies that wanted to do the original idea with drama. Then they liked the idea it evolved into, and it was Hurry Up and Wait. And then the whole Caitlyn Jenner show happened, and one cable company passed because they're like, we love the show, but we think the market's too saturated. Another production company said, we don't think it's too saturated. They wanted to pick it up, and it just sat there. Okay.
Yeah.
While it was sitting there, I went to a panel on web series, and they had 5 web series that were very successful, and the creators all told their stories and how they did it. They all did it in different ways. Some did it with their own money. Some had an angel sponsor. The first season was the hardest, and then some of them got picked up, and they told how they did it, and it was really inspiring. And I said, this is what I want to do, but I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet. And I'd worked in new media at HBO. That was my last stint, new media and distribution. And part of what I was doing at the time, this was when web series were just starting out, I was looking for stuff on the web for HBO, and I was thinking, wow, this is the wild, wild west. Like, you can kind of do whatever you want. And a lot of the research I did said, do 3 episodes. Don't shoot the whole series. Do 3. Put it out there and see what works and what doesn't. And then you can tweak it if you need to. So I did a lot of research. So I thought, wow, I want to do this the way I want to do it. I'm not sure how I'm going to do the budget yet. We had done a small Indiegogo campaign for the original series, and
I saw it. Yeah, you raised like $6,000.
Raised like $6,000.
Yeah.
Got to do a sizzle reel, But through that sizzle reel, one of the people that contributed was a production company. Did a small few $100 contribution to the series, and I called to say, hey, I'm going to send you your perk, whatever, a T-shirt, and you get like an associate or executive producer title or whatever it was, or associate producer. And the person at the head of the production company, the CEO, said, hey, well, let's do lunch. You can give me my perks at lunch. I said, okay. So we did lunch and said, hey, what's going on with the project? And I said, it's evolved, da-da-da. Oh, really? Do you have any? Yeah, we did the sizzle reel. This is the direction I want to go in. And I showed her the sizzle reel, and she's like, wow. And she goes, I said, I just want to do my own thing. I want to do, web series. I want to do docu-series. I don't want the drama. I just want to do real stories. And she goes, oh, well, what's your wish list? What's your budget? And I said, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I'd have to do a budget. She goes, well, why don't you do a budget and give it to me, and I'll give it to our accountant and see what he says. I said, okay. So I did a budget per episode for 5 episodes for 10, gave it to her. She gave it to the accountant. She goes, why don't we do 3 and I told her my whole 3-episode theory. And she goes, why don't we do 3 episodes and see how it goes? So they gave me what I wanted. I shot 3 episodes. I put it out on YouTube. We created a YouTube channel for Outrageous.
Sure.
Put it up on the YouTube channel and started things going. We had a Facebook, a Twitter, started the social media, very like grassroots. And a distributor saw it on YouTube and emailed me and said, I love this show. It's done really well. I think, and I checked him out. It was real. And he's like, I want to put it on Amazon Prime.
Wow.
Wow. And I was like, wow, okay. And that's how it started. And
now what is the budget for like, what was your budget back then, just per episode, just for the listeners who were maybe producers or filmmakers?
For the original,
about estimate.
I'll give you a guesstimate. For the original guesstimate was around $5,000 an episode.
Okay, that's not horrible.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was to get it done and pay. We pay everybody. Like, everybody's working on a shoestring budget, but that was like to pay everybody. And it was also, we had to create a website and do all this other stuff. There's a lot involved.
The marketing side. Yeah.
Marketing side. And, I had to make it worth my time to do it and that whole thing. And it was doable for that originally we thought we could do it for less when we started the Indiegogo campaign. And that's when we found out, like, because you have post-production and everything else.
Yeah,
really
cinematographer, you want, for at least 4K, you need, to shoot at least 4K and, editing and lighting and, you need at least one PA, if not 2, a sound person.
Yes,
I mean, it's a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It all adds up.
Yeah.
It all adds up.
Yeah.
And so that's when we learned, like, whoa, okay, we were a little, and somebody had told me, well, that's, ambitious.
It's a little lean.
And it was, so that's like the journey. You kind of learn along the way as you go. And then they loved the 3 episodes we put out. They gave us financing to do the first series of Outrageous. They gave us financing. We're now in season 2 of Outrageous.
Yeah.
And we also, I can't name names, but we have a major cable company interested in doing the show also as a longer, half hour to hour episode kind of thing. And, that's like hurry up and wait. So they came to us and we'll see what happens. And so, that was kind of like my journey with it.
Can you talk a little bit about the process of producing Outrageous in terms of, dealing with Amazon from an economic standpoint? Like, how are you paid? Because I had a friend who's he's an actor, but he's done a couple of shows on Netflix, and he was kind of complaining to me, like, well, I never get paid. He's like, I don't get paid for those streaming services. I get paid for my day work, but Netflix, I think, has something where they don't pay royalties to actors. Maybe the producers get paid. So just in terms of how you've monetized it, if as much as you can talk about, once it goes to a streaming service like Amazon.
Okay, well, there's different ways, and you can get paid through ads and subscriptions and other things like that, and you get a percentage.
Okay.
And you get a cut, you get a split with Amazon. And Amazon actually, I think, is a pretty good deal compared to a lot of the ones that are out there. I don't know about Netflix and those. I haven't done anything with them yet. But
hint, no,
right. But no, actually, I have a meeting with them for something else.
Okay.
And I think there's so many great opportunities out there. What my entertainment attorney has told me, he goes over, and it's actually the entertainment through my umbrella company. Well, I have my own production company, PMG Productions. And I produce Outrageous along with Thrill Ride Productions, and they're our financers.
They're the person that you originally met that gave it a couple $100 to Indiegogo. Okay.
Yes, and their entertainment attorney goes through everything, and we've had a lot of streaming services want us on also, but we were on Roku. We're no longer on. Like, once our year contract came, we severed it, because what this entertainment attorney told me, I mean, when you're starting out, any opportunity is good. You want to get your stuff
absolutely.
out. But once you get established, we're lucky enough to get on Amazon, and I'm grateful for that. You want to stay lean. You don't want other attachments, because we have a non-exclusive with Amazon that we can sever if we need to. And because if this other cable company wants to pick us up and do a bigger show, because right now we do short form, our episodes are anywhere from 6 to 15 minutes, which is great. They're easier to shoot.
Easy to produce.
And they love it because people can watch it on their cell phones, and, it's actually a cool format. But if we do a longer form and it's a bigger show, you want to be lean so you can go in that direction.
Okay.
And you don't want too many attachments. We'd had smaller streaming companies try to pick us up, which I loved and I wanted to do, but it was the bigger company, the entertainment attorney and CEO of Thrill Ride, that said, no, this is not in your best interest. And some of those contracts you really do need looked at if you can, or look at it yourself, or get your friend that's starting out as an attorney to check out, because a lot of times it's all in their favor and not in yours. And actually, Amazon has a pretty good contract, and that's what the attorney said anyway.
Comparative to some of the other ones.
Yes.
Okay.
But like he also told me, Pony, if you weren't already on and you needed to get out there, I'd say go for it on some of these other ones. So in other words, sometimes if it is about getting your stuff out there, just make sure you just do a year. Don't sell your soul. Do like what I did with the Roku contract. It was 1 year. So after that, it was easy to get out of.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Truth prescription listeners, listen to the truth from Pony Gales telling you. Make sure you keep your options open. That's the bottom line. Okay. Excellent. All right,
we're going out there.
Yeah, but one of the things I like that you said in this interview, and I also heard you say in another interview, was like, especially for aspiring filmmakers, you just got to shoot, go out and shoot, make films, go out, shoot, make films, get better, and put your stuff out there. And I think that's the answer. And that tells me the answer.
Real quick, another inspiration that told me that was Carolyn Strauss, who used to work at HBO. She's the executive producer on Game of Thrones.
Wow.
And HBO was always very supportive. I used to showcase all my short films and things there. And Carolyn told me 20 years ago, she said, Pony, you're really good. Keep doing what you do. And yourself out there. And coming from her, it was very inspirational, because she's a woman of few words. And she doesn't tell you she likes something if she doesn't.
Got it.
So, and her advice too was to keep going. And so it's true. Just put it out. And also, you know what? When people don't like things or tell you it's wrong, go with your gut instinct. Because with Outrageous, I actually had, and I'm going to throw her into the buzz for a minute. I love her. My social media PR person told me on my last episode 3 that's not out yet. I had this woman on who's amazing that started an organization, a nonprofit in Kenya that helps young girls that are victims of human trafficking. And she was she calls herself a queer woman of color, and she was a victim of sexual violence herself when she was younger. And she does a one-woman show on this, and this spoke to her heart. And, you know, that's her passion now. She lives in Kenya. She comes out here to do the show. We did a show on her. That'll be episode 3 of season 2.
Sure.
Amazing, heartwarming story. And my social media PR person said, Pony, we had a meeting. She goes, you got to do people that have more social media presence. She goes, I know. She goes, I looked at this woman's Facebook page. She has 106 followers. And she goes, come on, like, I know you want to do these things. And I said, you know what? I've done people that have that social media presence. I said, no, I watched the video, you know, she had on these girls. I said, I'm sorry, but I have to do the story. I'm doing it. This is why I'm doing the show. And this cable company that's interested, I told that to, they said, that's why we want you. So follow your truth.
Yeah. Okay.
You know?
Follow your truth on the truth prescription. All right. Yes or BS?
Okay.
So I'm gonna make a statement, and you're gonna say yes or BS. And if you want to expound or explain your answer, you can. If you don't, we'll move on.
Okay.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Number 1. The producer has it much easier than the director.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because it really depends. And sometimes you're both. So I'm going to say BS.
Is it because well, I know the executive producer anyway is putting his money, you know, is putting his money into the project. That the director is essentially an employee, so he's got. I mean, I guess he's got less tangible things to lose if the project doesn't go well.
Well, it depends because you can lose your reputation.
Yeah.
You know, I know for me, like years ago, I had an executive producer that funded a lot of my projects because she said she knew I'd get them done. You know. Wow.
Okay.
So. Okay. You know, you've got your reputation on the line. That says something. Yeah. You know.
Right.
And I like to work with people that give me creative control. You know, I was a partner in a production company before I started my own company where they were giving me creative control, supposedly, and then that actually wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that you have to learn to deal with that too, because you don't always get your way. You have to learn to negotiate. It's a collaboration. But I think when you're given that and you're not getting it, it wasn't going to be the projects I wanted to do and would want my name on it. And that's when I got out. I mean, it was not that easy. It was a long process. I was with them for almost 2 years, and it took 8 months. And I finally had to say, you know, I'm sorry. Like, I appreciated what that did for me because it got me where I am now.
Sure.
But we were just going in different directions creatively and it wasn't working. So I didn't want, you know, my name behind that. So I think as a director, like, that's where if you're a it depends. But, like, you know, that's your name you're putting out there. That's your work.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Number 2. Addictions are based in fear.
BS.
Okay.
Yeah. I think they're in our DNA. You know, I think if you're an alcoholic addict, I think you're just prone to that. Like, you're just born with that chip. You know, that's my take on it. I don't think anybody makes it or I don't think anybody can make you an addict or fix you. That's an inner thing, and it's just really a daily reprieve.
Do you think people use addictions to hide from things or to avoid things?
Of course, yeah.
That's kind of what I meant when I said
Oh, okay. When you say
based in
that,
fear. Yeah.
okay, sure, yeah. No, that okay. I hear where you're coming from with that, and that I do agree with.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
almost a crutch. It's a crutch to,
Yeah,
ignore some emotion or some feeling or situation.
true. Okay, that's true.
And being, someone who's dealt with that, I said, well,
Yeah,
let me
that's
ask you what
true.
you
And it
thought.
can come out, and I have to be careful of that every day, even though I don't drink or use drugs. You can do it with people, spending,
Yeah.
food,
Yeah. Food. Yeah.
It's more about, like, for me, being like meditating, being balanced, and keeping an eye, like, and sometimes I'll say, okay, to my innermost, okay, what's really going on? Like,
Yeah.
And you're right. It's usually fear based.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah. Trying
like,
to avoid something.
Avoid it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I interviewed Chris Plowman, who's the CEO of Insight Timer, a couple days ago. So check Insight Timer out. It's a really cool meditation app.
Ooh, I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, that he's developed, and it's a truly free app because a lot of them are free, and then you start using it, then they start hitting you with a credit card.
I have a question. How does he do a free app like that? Can he make money off it? How does that work?
For the last 2 years, he's not made money, and they're now just starting to figure out a way to monetize it. But it won't come. You still won't pay a service to use it. Basically, he has I think he said over 4,000 meditation teachers on there, and so if you want to connect with a particular teacher, you would pay the teacher directly, and then they would get some cut of that. That's what they're working on.
Oh, okay, got it.
But in terms of all the content, everything that's on there, it's a really cool app. Check it out.
I'll check it out. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Pony prefers working with super talented people that are difficult to deal with versus average talented people that are easy to work with.
I prefer to work with super talented people that are easy to work with.
Oh, my stomach is hurting. That's too funny. That doesn't exist.
Right.
Well, maybe it does. But that wasn't one of the choices.
Okay, well, actually, that's an interesting question because I've found, through my own process, I prefer to work with people that are easy to work with. I found difficult people, it's just usually not a good mix.
It's tough because I find that super talented people are usually really, really quirky and sometimes weird and difficult to work with and I've heard stories about this, I have a little insight. I know I have a few friends that are actors and some of these top-notch actors that will scream at people during a set and, insult people. And it's that's tough. Is that really necessary? But, they're making the big dollars because of their name. So they feel like that, they can get away with it. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, trust me, I've obviously had to work with a lot of difficult people. And I've also been really blessed and lucky to work with a lot of really cool people. And sometimes people can be difficult, but you can work through it.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't mind working with difficult people where it's real and you can work through it. What I don't like, and I have had this happen, is working with difficult people that are just cause way more drama than you need to and stress.
Sure. And
doing that, having done that, I try to go with the opposite. I guess it depends on the situation where, I think with the docuseries, it's allowed me to now do more of what I want to do. And I have,
sure.
I won't name names, but last season had one guest on that that became difficult later. And that's part of the territory. You're going to go along with that. But overall, I've been really lucky to just have really amazing people. And I kind of go with my gut instinct on that. I do with, with my feature, I think it's more like with the contest, I get notes and everybody has an opinion. I get notes from, the whatever, like somebody's, grandmother or something. But
just for the non-filmmakers listening, tell them what notes are.
well, they'll read your script and they'll say, I loved it, but
Right.
like, can you do this? Or,
Right.
or an actress will be like, yeah, I want to do this part. And because I have
But
what's motivating her? Like, why is what is likable about the main character that gets killed off? Well, obviously she's not too likable, or
right.
like that's why she gets killed.
She's not supposed to be likable, right?
Right. So you kind of take it in stride, and sometimes I'll get notes where I'm like, you know what, that's a good idea, and you kind of take what you like and leave the rest.
Got it. Okay. Separate the wheat from the shaft. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 4. Feature-length films are more fun to produce than shorts.
False. They're a lot more work.
All right. Number 5. Outrageous is successful because it is a reality TV program actually grounded in truth.
True. That's true.
Yeah. Because a lot of a lot of these reality shows I think some of them are scripted, or at least have storylines.
I worked in a reality company, Zodiac USA, and they used to do like the wife swaps and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Most of the stuff is scripted, like 90%, at least like loosely outlined. Yeah.
Sure. No, I can. A friend of mine, he was my first guest. His name is Anthony Watkins. He's a transplant surgeon. He was on a reality show for NBC called A New York Med, and he was acting.
Remember that?
You remember New York Med?
Yeah.
He was on both seasons, and he's the one that really hit me to the fact that he's like, we would go in and they would say, "Oh, can you say this again?" or "Can you do this?" or and it was all really it wasn't really quote unquote reality. You're dealing with the realest thing in the world, which is medicine in a hospital,
right.
Dealing with people's lives. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Number 6. The answer, or I'll say one answer for homophobia is love.
Yes. True.
Okay.
Love that.
Number 7. The last one. You'll love this one. Women work better in a collective than men.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. I'm going to say false. Because it depends on the women and it depends on the men. Because I work really great with men. Mm-hmm. And some I do, some I don't. But most of them I do. And same with women. I think it's more of a personal thing.
Okay. Okay. All right. Excelente. Well, that's all I have.
Yay! That's great. That was fun.
Yeah, this has been awesome. I definitely appreciate you coming on. Appreciate your perspective, and I wish you a lot of continued success. It's what you're doing with the show is really amazing, and I just hope that your other projects continue along that same vein of truthfulness, just coming from a real place.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love your show, and I'm going to keep watching it.
Thank you. Keep listening to it. Thank you. I'm going to send you my short. I'm going to send it to you when we're done.
I would love that.
Yeah. Love get your perspective as a producer. All right. Well, good people, we are out of here. As I always say, the truth will set you free if you let it.